all the other. So Bhakti Yoga includes Dhyana Yoga, it includes Jnana Yoga, it includes Karma Yoga automatically. So if you are practicing Bhakti Yoga, automatically you are also practicing Karma Yoga, you are also practicing Jnana Yoga, you are also practicing Dhyana Yoga. So this is Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So in chapter 3, Krishna briefly talks about the glories of transcendental knowledge, but he does not give too many details. But he only speaks of how transcendental knowledge can elevate one's consciousness, how it can help one to transition from Sakama Karma Yoga, where you are attached to the results, to Nishkama Karma Yoga, where you're not attached to the results. And in chapter 3, he also says that if you practice and understand transcendental knowledge, it gives you the strength and the intelligence to overcome your lusty desires. So this is a purification process where you can move from the mode of passion to the mode of goodness. So we understood that what is transcendental knowledge? Where does it originate from? Who can acquire this knowledge? What is the process to acquire this knowledge? What is the qualifications of a person who can acquire this knowledge? And after acquiring this knowledge, what is the result? What is the end outcome? So Krishna says only a devotee and a friend of his should be trying to understand what this transcendental knowledge is all about. And by accepting a guru who's the via medium to Krishna, you can follow the instructions of the guru to reach Krishna. So guru and Krishna are parallel lines on a railway track. So you need both. You cannot have one without the other. So this is the importance of the guru. So we also talked about the parampara. Why is the parampara important? There are 4 Vaishnava schools stemming from Lakshmi Devi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the Sanat Kumaras. And each of them had their designated acharyas in Kali Yuga who came to propagate God consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So this parampara, Krishna talks about how he revealed the knowledge to Vivashwan. From Vivashwan it came to Manu. From Manu it came to Ikshvaku. And then Krishna says somewhere along that path, the chain of parampara was broken. And when that chain breaks, I have to come back to re-establish that knowledge. So Krishna says, because you're my devotee, because you're my friend, I am going to reveal this most confidential knowledge about self, super self, and the relationship between the two. And Arjuna is of course puzzled, saying, how could you have spoken this to Vivashwan? You're here on the battlefield with me. We are almost the same age. It doesn't make sense to me. Are we not contemporaries? To that, Krishna then begins to say, many, many births, both you and I have had. And I remember all of them. I even remember your births, but you don't remember. And then Krishna clarifies that for him, birth is not because of karma. Birth is because of his own free will. So actually, when we say the Lord takes birth, birth is an inaccurate word to use. The word avatar means descent. The Lord simply descends out of his own free will. So for the Lord, there is no birth, there is no death. He just appears and he disappears. He descends and he leaves. That's it. He doesn't undergo birth like we do. Our birth is because of our karma. So hence the proper term to use for an avatar is the avatar has appeared and the avatar has wound up their pastimes and disappeared. So avatars don't have birth and death. So Krishna is constantly taking various forms of Lord Vishnu to re-establish Dharma. So the Acharya says somewhere in one of the Brahmandas, there are billions and trillions of Brahmandas like ours. So each Brahmanda has a Lord Brahma. Each Brahmanda has a Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. So in each of those Brahmandas, the Lord exists, pervading every single atom. So somewhere the Lord is always performing his Leela. So then the Lord talks about himself and how great he is and why does he appear. When there is a decline in irreligion, he appears. And then he gives 3 reasons as to why he comes. Paritranaya sadhunam, which is to protect the devotees. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, which is to annihilate the demons. Dharma samsthapanataya, to reinstall dharma. So that's another reason the Lord gives. So he gives 3 reasons as to why he comes. Then we talked about, then Arjuna is curious. He says, well, there are people who are eager to know about you, but what about those who are not eager at all? What about them? What happens to them? So Krishna says, Ye yatamam tam prapatyante. To the level that they surrender to me, I reciprocate with them. So, okay, then the next question one can ask is, if you reciprocate with everybody, whether they acknowledge you or not as the Lord, how come everybody doesn't come back to you? If you are personally reciprocating with all of them, how come everybody doesn't come back to you? Because you are saying yourself that you reciprocate with everyone based on their level of surrender. So Krishna explains that, you see, some people want quick results. So for those who want quick results, what do they need to do? They need to go to the demigods and worship them. And by worshipping the demigods, slowly they will get purified and ultimately they will come and begin to worship me. So Krishna says, without being purified, you cannot break this cycle of birth and death. So if you're not ready to acknowledge me, if you're not ready to accept me as a Supreme Lord, I have created a structure where at least you reach out to higher authorities in the form of the 33 crore Devatas. You worship them for whatever is your desire, and they will grant you the desire. By granting your desires, hopefully, you will ultimately come to the right path. So by following the system of Varnashram and the Vedas and the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, you will get gradually purified. And then Krishna says, although I have created all of this, I am not a part of it. I am aloof from it. So even though I don't have any work to do, yet I do work. Because in the future, people will say the Lord did not follow his own instructions, even though he is beyond those instructions. So if you are materialistic in nature, then you have to follow the Varnashram Dharma. And ultimately, you will reach the goal of liberation. And then Krishna talks about the intricacies of karma. What is karma, akarma, and vikarma? I saw one question in WhatsApp. It seems like the explanation that I gave yesterday was not very clear. So let me ask a question. What is karma? What is
Karma is to do pious action.
pious action? So what is vikarma?
Vikarma is prohibited action.
Okay, and what is akarma?
That's inaction.
What does inaction mean? Does inaction mean inactivity?
No, it means you devote, concentrate on the Lord, devotional activities. Whatever you do is done to please the Lord.
But
It is not.
my question is, do you do only devotional activities in akarma?
That is what I understood yesterday, that in karma, you do, and whatever you do, you don't do it for your own gain.
Mm-hmm.
And you enjoy eternal transcendental happiness, especially.
Mm.
So my doubt was, since karma you have to do because you are in this world, so you cannot escape that. And the combination of karma and akarma should be practiced.
Yes. If you're doing your duties and responsibilities as per Varnashram, and you are also worshipping the Lord, that is a karma. A karma doesn't mean you only do 24/7 devotional service. Of course, that is nice if we can have the opportunity to do that, isn't it? But it's not practical.
The doubt was, Mataji, that when you do your karma, it is not always that you do it, all the actions, especially in this materialistic world, all actions are always pious and you follow the rule of book.
Yes,
Sometimes
that's
without
why
your help, without your knowledge, you tend to do some mistakes.
that is why I said what we practice is called mixed bhakti. It is not pure bhakti. Pure bhakti means giving up everything for the Lord. And remember, the Lord is saying time and time and time again, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't prematurely leave your post and think you can come and meditate on me or whatever it is. It's a process. You have to purify yourself. So yes, you will make mistakes along that path. We call it mixed bhaktis because we still have little materialistic tendencies. Over a period of time, those materialistic tendencies will subside. But as long as you're practicing devotional service to Krishna, Krishna says you're perfect. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So akarma doesn't mean you have given up everything and exclusively doing devotional service. It would be very, very nice. All of us would love to do that. But it's not practical. If you're a grihastha, you have responsibilities as a grihastha. Everybody cannot abandon their family and do what they want. Some of us may be more fortunate than others and may have an opportunity to leave our corporate jobs early and focus completely on spirituality. And some of us may have other compulsions to take up spirituality at a much younger age and not at all focus on the materialistic side. But those kind of souls are few and far between. The vast majority of us will be practicing what is called mixed bhakti. It's not pure bhakti. We've started on that journey and we simply continue until we reach the point of pure bhakti. So it's a journey. So yes, you will have some material desires. You will make mistakes. You will feel separated from Krishna. But the thing is, Krishna says you do it with faith, do it without envy. Faith and non-enviousness is the pre-criteria for you to progress. So in chapter 4, Krishna also talks about the symptoms of a person performing Nishkama Karma Yoga. Nishkama Karma Yoga means someone who is attached to his duties but does not worry about the results. He's just purely performing the duties out of a sense of responsibility and service. So such symptoms that Krishna talks about such a person is that he is self-satisfied, he is independent, he performs no fruitive action, although he is acting, So this is action in action. That particular shloka, I think you had posted. What is action and inaction? You are performing devotional service, that is action in inaction. But you're not incurring any karma. Although you're doing everything like any other mundane person is doing. So such a person gives up the sense of proprietorship. He's perfectly sense-controlled. He is able to control the mind and intelligence. He only acts for the bare necessities of life, Krishna says. He is free from duality and does not envy the Lord. Such a person achieves perfect transcendental knowledge, and Krishna says ultimately he emerges into transcendence. And then between shlokas 25 to 33, Krishna talks about the different kinds of sacrifices. He talks about the Dravya Yajna, which is the sacrifice of possessions, Tapo Yajna, which is severe austerity, practicing austerity, Yoga Yajna, practicing the eightfold mystic path, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna, which is the study of Vedic scriptures. Like this, he talks about the different kinds of yajna that one can perform to ultimately reach him, to ultimately purify yourself and reach the divine. And then Krishna talks about the purpose of sacrifices. After he's talked about the various kinds of sacrifices in these shlokas, he talks about why do you perform the sacrifices. It is to develop jnana, Krishna says. It is to destroy your sins. It is to attain spiritual realization. So the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices is to be situated in transcendental knowledge. But what happens to us? We become attached to rituals and forget the principle as to why we're doing it. And that is our fault. It becomes, everything that we do becomes a habit. We've forgotten why are we doing it. We're doing it to try and understand Krishna. So then Arjuna says, well, isn't there an easier way? Because I can't do all of these sacrifices. What you're asking me to do is too difficult. Krishna says, yes, there is an easier way. If you can't do this on your own, Krishna says, just approach a guru and understand transcendental knowledge from the guru. How? By surrendering to him, by inquiring from him submissively, and by offering him service. This is what Krishna says. So Krishna says, this is the easiest way for you to understand me, who I am, by taking shelter of Guru. So Krishna talks about the glories of transcendental knowledge. What happens when you get this knowledge? What are the results? So Krishna says, even if you're the most sinful person, just understanding who is Krishna, understanding who you are, understanding the relationship with Krishna, Krishna says you can cross over this ocean of misery. I'll repeat, Krishna says, even though you are the most sinful person, if you've understood who is the Supreme Lord and you've re-established your relationship with him, Krishna says you can easily cross this ocean of misery. And by getting this transcendental knowledge, by understanding this transcendental knowledge, all of his past karma, Krishna says, are burnt to ashes. So there is nothing as sublime and as pure as transcendental knowledge. And the person who hears more about Krishna relishes it more and more and more. They have an insatiable appetite to hear what Krishna has to say or to hear about Krishna. This is one of the symptoms of a devotee. They are anxious to hear about Krishna. They are anxious to see what Krishna has to say. But then Krishna gives two final conclusions. He says, but then who can acquire this transcendental knowledge? He says, Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Faith. And then, of course, one should not have any envy. And then what happens to those who don't have faith? Krishna talks about the consequences for them as well. He says agnya meaning ignorant, ashraddhana, faithless, samshayatma, doubtful. The ignorant, faithless, doubtful. What will happen to this kind of individual? Vinashyati. Krishna says they are destroyed. They fall, they are defeated. In all their endeavors, they will not succeed because they think they are the master. And then Krishna says, such a person will not get happiness in this birth, let alone the next birth. So, which means he is establishing that you must be connected to the Supreme. You cannot operate independently of the Supreme. You will not be happy. You will be miserable. You will have to undergo miseries. So do not doubt Krishna. Have faith. So this chapter 5 is titled Karma Sanyasa Yoga. Krishna comes back to the topic of karma. How can you perform your prescribed duties and still be detached? How can you be like a sannyasi while performing your prescribed duties? So this chapter is titled Karma Sanyasa Yoga, the yoga of action in Krishna consciousness. So this action in Krishna consciousness is inaction. This is a karma. So this entire chapter 5 is about a karma. Action in relationship with the Lord. So chapter 5 begins with Arjuna asking a question. And I will read the first shloka. He's confused again. He's confused again. So Arjuna vacha Sanyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha samshasi yathreyas etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna is asking, O Krishna, first of all you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? The same question Arjuna has already asked. And in response to this question, Krishna has given detailed answers. So why is he asking this question again? He's repeating the same question. Well, he's repeating the same question because of the two previous statements by Lord Krishna. And I will read the last two shlokas of 41, which causes this ambiguity for Arjuna. And he's seeking clarification again. He's asking the same question again. And he's telling Krishna, definitely you tell me this time, which is better? Which is better? What is the choice? Is it, should we renounce our work, or do you recommend work with devotion? Which are you talking about? The reason he's confused is because of Krishna's statements in the previous two shlokas in the chapter 4. So here Krishna says, Yoga sanyasya karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibhadnanti dhananjaya. So Krishna says in shloka 41, one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna, a person performing work in devotion because they have understood this transcendental knowledge is already self-realized. They may not be perfect, but they are already self-realized. He is not bound by the reactions of work. So he is performing a karma. And the next shloka is what creates further confusion. Tasmat ajnana sambhutam hritstam jnanasmat what is this? I cannot even read this. Jnanasiman manah chitvainam samshayam yogam uttishto uttishta bharata. So Krishna says, therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So he's confused because Krishna has just said, use this transcendental knowledge to perform your work, and now he's saying fight. So this causes the confusion for Arjuna. So Arjuna is still thinking that jnana means cessation of all material activities, which is giving up everything and just solely focusing on scriptures and getting to know who the Supreme Lord is. But Krishna has also said work and devotion is superior. So Arjuna is thinking, why is Krishna asking me to stop working and then simultaneously asking me to start working? This is the confusion for Arjuna. So this chapter begins with this doubt. So today we're going to talk about how you can be detached by still doing your duties and responsibilities. Who are the three doers? What is the equal vision with which such a person who is practicing Krishna consciousness sees everything? And somebody asked yesterday, what about all of these jihadis, etc. So Krishna has a solution for that. What is the peace formula that we should follow if we really want a good society? So today's acronym is STEP. How do we stay in the world? We do not have to renounce this world. There are three doers, equal vision, and the peace formula. So now we will look at, is renunciation better or work and devotion is better? Because that's the doubt Arjuna had, right? So Krishna responds and answers his question. So same question again, work or renounce? So Krishna says work, but work as a sacrifice to me. Work for me, Krishna says. This is work and devotion. So the difference between the two is as follows. If you work in devotion, it allows you to act from your eternal position as a servant of Lord Krishna. And doing your work with devotion to Krishna purifies your heart. It's a joyful process. All of your senses are engaged. You are completely renounced, and it's the fastest way to get back to Krishna. Whereas renunciation means you've given up all of your activities. Your soul is active, but it's a very difficult position to maintain because you always have desires. So hence Krishna says, don't prematurely give up your duties and responsibilities. Because if you do that, you will create all kinds of problems for yourself because you've not prepared yourself to do complete renunciation. Hence, Krishna says that's going to be a difficult position for you to maintain. You may go into the forest, but you will give up and come running back because you've not purified yourself sufficiently. Second, renunciation is a stopgap solution. It really does not purify the heart. The only thing that purifies the heart is service to Krishna, Bhakti. Bhakti is defined as devotional service, not just devotion. Devotional service, which means Bhakti is active. It's filled with activities. Whereas if you're renouncing, you're going alone. You're trying to meditate on the Supreme. Your heart is not being transformed as a result of that. So it's a limited, you'll get limited results with renunciation. You are artificially trying to control your senses, and therefore it becomes a struggle. And this kind of renunciation is incomplete because you've not surrendered to Bhagavan here. You're aiming for Brahman, which is just one facet of the Lord. Lastly, if you practice this kind of renunciation, you have to take birth again. Krishna says that. So even if you achieve the Brahman platform, the risk is too high, you will come back. So now we will talk about what is actually Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga means work is worship, especially if that work is offered as a service to Krishna. It could be your own work, it doesn't matter. You don't have to give up whatever you are doing today, whether you're a student or you're a doctor or a banker. You can continue doing that. Just worship Krishna and offer everything as a sacrifice to him. So work becomes yoga or worship when you are able to keep your mind and senses under control simply by offering them in the service of the Lord. By doing this, you can act without attachment, and also that you don't have a desire for results. You are happy to accept whatever Krishna gives you. But that doesn't mean you don't strive for the best. That does not mean you do not strive for perfection. As a matter of fact, Krishna will talk about perfection in the very end of this chapter. So one can use our body, our mind, our senses, and intelligence to serve Krishna. And through that, we can begin this journey of purification. Krishna says, what is the result of doing all of this? The shloka is Brahmanyadhyaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yah lipyatena sa papena padma patram mivambhasa. So Krishna says, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So the lotus leaf, when it has water droplets on top of it, the water just slides off of it. Right? The lotus leaf does not absorb that water. So Krishna is using this analogy to say, do your work. Whatever results you get, you surrender those results to me. What does that mean, surrender the results to me? It doesn't mean if you're a crorepati, you give your all crores to Lord Krishna. Whatever you can give to Krishna in his service, you should give. That is surrendering the results. You don't have to give up anything. So by doing this, Krishna says, such a performer is unaffected by sinful action. Such a person is very dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him. And such a person attains peace, and therefore the result is no anxiety. Vaikunta, the place where there is no anxiety. Now, all of us have this question. How can I be vested in my work? How can I work hard and be goal-oriented? If I have to achieve a goal, I have to be oriented towards that goal. How can I work with absolute enthusiasm and determination and still be detached? It seems impossible. So Arjuna is bewildered by this. How can you be detached when you're telling me to work with devotion? So that's the question Arjuna has. So now Krishna will talk about the three doers. There is the soul, there is super soul, and there is Prakriti. It is the soul that has desires because of his free will. Limited free will. Not complete free will. Little bit of independence the Lord has given us. Using that little bit of independence, we create a lot of desires and try to satisfy those desires. And the super soul sanctions those desires based on what is there in your karma tank or bank account. Once the super soul sanctions this, who actually executes it and makes it happen? Prakriti. So Prakriti simply carries out the order of the Lord. If the Lord says yes, Prakriti enables that outcome for you. If the Lord says no, then it does not happen. So you can understand this through the next diagram here. So let's say you have a desire. Expressed or unexpressed, it doesn't matter. Whether you're petitioning the Lord or petitioning the demigods, it does not matter who you are asking to fulfill this desire. So the jiva has a desire. Ishvara acknowledges this desire and checks to see. Somebody asked a question, right? Who's keeping track of all your karma? The Lord is. He knows what's in that bank account of yours. So he decides, do you have sufficient credit for him to sanction? That's all he's looking at. What is in your account, and as per that, what you can withdraw and make use of. If the Lord sanctions it, Prakriti makes it happen. And then the jiva experiences the results of that sanction. So please understand, in this diagram, the Lord had nothing to do with your karma. He is simply checking your account and say, chalo, you can withdraw this much. Whatever you have deposited is what you're withdrawing. So the Lord has nothing to do with your karma. You have everything to do with your karma because you have desires. So we have a tendency to fault the Lord for everything. Why is this COVID killing so many people? Why? Nothing to do with God. It is the jiva's prior desires. Now you may say, obviously the jiva did not want to die in this COVID times. That was not the desire of the jiva. But your prior karma determined your destiny already. But your free will you can use to change the destiny. So based on what is in the account, Krishna just sanctions it. So what happens if the other is true? Let's say you have a desire. Krishna checks the account. You don't have sufficient balance or whatever it is. It's not there. Krishna rejects it. And when Krishna rejects it, the jiva becomes frustrated and feels hopeless. Lord is not fair. I'm working so hard, I'm not successful. The Lord is simply not fair to me. So this is the vicious cycle that we're part of. So now the question is, how do you purify your desires? Because the desire is the culprit. I like this diagram. You know, there is always a sign that says happiness this way, but it's actually a rat trap for us. And we get caught in it and then we don't know how to get out of it. Because everything looks attractive to us. Everything looks like as if it is a diamond. And we're constantly chasing diamonds, not realizing it is a broken piece of glass. Who says this? Dhruva Maharaj says this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When his stepmother prevents him from sitting on the lap of his father, he gets so offended. He goes to his mother and says, how can she do that? It's very unfair. Why am I not allowed to sit on the lap of my own father? And he says, this is very unfair. This is not right. And he says, I want answers. And his mother says, if you want answers, you have to go to the forest and meditate. He's just 5 years old, 6 years old. Sure enough, as a 6-year-old, he goes to the forest to meditate. And the Lord is very worried, thinking, what is this young child doing going into the forest? So he sends Narada Muni. Narada Muni tells him, why are you here? You're so young, go back to your parents. And Dhruva is so adamant, he says, no. If you are not going to tell me how I can question the Lord, I want to see the Lord so I can ask him this question. Please keep moving, Narada Muni. So in the forest, Dhruv asks all the animals, do you know where is God? 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 Do you know how I can talk to him? And all the animals says, no, we don't know. So finally Narada Muni comes and he tells Narada Muni also, look, if you're not going to help me, please keep moving. I am determined. I want God. I want to talk to him. Ask him, why is this happening to me? So Narada Muni is so impressed, he gives him the mantra and he says, use this mantra and meditate. For 6 months, Dhruva, at the age of 6, I believe, meditates in the forest. Om Namo Narayana. And he's closed his eyes and he's meditating. And suddenly he sees this beautiful vision of Lord Vishnu. And the minute he sees this, with his eyes closed, he sees this vision of Lord Vishnu in front of him. He experienced such joy and transcendental bliss. He's so shocked, he opens his eyes. And when he opens his eyes, who's standing there before him? Lord Vishnu. And at that time, Lord Vishnu touches his head in blessing. And because of that blessing, Dhruva offers prayers to the Lord. And in that prayer, he says, I understand now that whatever I have been chasing for are broken pieces of glass. My Lord, you are the actual diamond. How could I have been so ignorant? This is the prayer coming out of the mouth of a child. The realization that he had when his stepmother refused to allow him to sit on his father's lap, he gets very angry. He says, I'm going to be a greater king than my dad, than my grandfather, and I'm going to prove that I'm greater than them. With that intent, he went to that forest. But because of the intervention of Guru in the form of Narada Muni, he realizes that whatever intent he had was just totally useless. It's like this rat trap, everything looks attractive, but everything ultimately ends up being a trap. So, but then you have desires, so how do you purify your desires? Again, from chapter 2, we are coming back to what is higher taste. So how do you get this higher taste? You need to engage yourself in chanting, reading, and all kinds of devotional activities. So this Samadarshinaha, one who sees everybody as equal, Krishna talks about the qualities and features of such a person. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Sunichaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater or outcast. So Krishna says, when you are situated in this pure knowledge and if you understand me, what is the ultimate transformation that is happening within you? You don't distinguish or see any dualities anymore. You don't say Brahmana is superior, Shudra is inferior. You don't see any distinctions. Why? Because you're only seeing the super soul in everything around you, both in animate as well as inanimate objects. You're only seeing Lord Vishnu. So this is that Panditaha, Samadarshina. He sees everybody with equal vision. This is the outcome. So what are the symptoms of such a person? He is equal. He practices equanimity. If something goes right, he doesn't get unduly happy. If something goes wrong, he doesn't get distressed. He knows these things will come like a cycle. There will be ups and downs in life, and therefore such a person is not perturbed. He's peaceful, he's calm. For most of us, if something goes wrong, we get extremely agitated. But such a person just accepts what comes as Krishna's mercy, both the good and the not so good. He becomes naturally tolerant. I was saying yesterday, right? Ultimately, this journey is about being a kinder, gentler, better person. He exhibits genuine kindness within and without, and he gives up unrealistic expectations from himself and others. He does not have any expectations of others. Such a person obviously will not be perturbed by things. He will learn how to live in peace with everybody. Now, how does he see others? He sees everybody as his brother. This is real brotherhood. Everyone he sees as a child of God. And he perceives everyone as the temple of the Lord. The Lord is in them as Paramatma. So the last shloka for today. Krishna ends by giving us the peace formula. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shanti mrichyati. Krishna says, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So let's look at this. First thing the Lord says is, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Bhokta means to enjoy. Yajna, which means whatever yajna you are performing, who is the person receiving it and accepting it and enjoying it? Lord Krishna. Tapasam, any austerity that you perform, ultimately who is enjoying that austerity that you are performing? Krishna. So Krishna says, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. He is the real enjoyer. He is the supreme Lord. He is the master. So he enjoys by receiving the yajna and the tapasa that you do, he enjoys it. He feels satisfied. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. All of the universes he controls. Who controls? The material cosmos is controlled by Vishnu, the three Vishnus. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He's controlling everything. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. Suhridam means real friend. Sarva Bhutanam. I am the well-wisher, Krishna is saying. I am your real friend. I am your well-wisher. So why would you not want me in your life? It seems utterly foolish for you to want the kingdom of God, but without God in it. Ravana wanted Sita Devi, but he didn't want Lord Ram. He wanted the goddess of fortune, but he didn't want God. Krishna is saying, ultimately, I am your best friend. I am your well-wisher. So all of us should have Krishna in our life because he is the one who protects you. So I have a few more points to cover and then we can end the session for the day. So in chapter 3, Krishna talks about Janak Maharaj. He says, kings like Janaka and all the other Rishis performed their duties perfectly while they meditated on me. They were all self-realized souls, but still they did not give up their duties and responsibilities. They stayed in their position as kings. And after that, Krishna gives himself as an example, saying, although I don't have any duties and responsibilities to perform, yet when I come, I choose to perform these duties because if I don't do it, I will be the cause for the degradation of society. So this Janaka Maharaj, as I mentioned, is one of the 12 Mahajans. So he is considered to be a self-realized soul, a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. So the sages at that time who were practicing these various yajnas, they are mystified by how Janaka Maharaj is able to perform his duties so perfectly as a perfect king while still being a devotee of Lord Vishnu. How could he do both? How can one be a devotee of Lord Vishnu and still accept the burdens of being a king? Imagine being a king. You are responsible for the welfare of your citizens. So many problems can come your way, but yet you stay on the path of worshipping Lord Vishnu. So the sages said, for us, it seems like it should be easier for us because we have actually given up everything and we are eternally, exclusively trying to focus our attention on Krishna. But how is it that you're able to do both? You hold on to your day job, you do it so well, but yet you never forget Lord Vishnu. So that was the puzzle. So as renunciate, we cannot understand how you can do these two things at once, which I think was the question Sanjay Prabhu was asking earlier. And the sages tell Janaka Maharaj, we actually don't think it's possible to do both. To be a devotee, to be a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, and still have material responsibilities on your shoulders. So the sages approach Janaka Maharaj and ask him, how do you do this? Because we don't think it's possible. Janaka Maharaj says, of course it is possible. And the sages ask, how can you tell us? And Janaka Maharaj says, why don't you come back tomorrow and I will explain. So sure enough, the sages come back because they are eager to find the answer from a self-realized soul. How is it possible to hold on to your duties and responsibilities and still be a perfect devotee of Lord Vishnu? So when they come back the next day, Janak Maharaj has organized a prasadam feast for them. And he invites them, washes their feet, gives them a nice seat, and he personally begins to serve them prasadam. Now, as they are being served this prasadam personally by Janak Maharaj, the sages looked up and saw that above each of their seats, hanging over their head by a very thin thread, was a sword, a long, sharp sword. This was hanging from the ceiling. Were it to drop, it would drop directly on their head. So each one of the sages had a sword dangling on top of his head. You may think this is not a way to take guests. You invite them, serve them prasadam, and you have a sword hanging over their head. So the sages look a little perturbed and they ask Janaka Maharaj, are you sure it is safe for us to sit here? Janaka Maharaj says, don't worry, trust me, you are all right, you are safe. And they knew if Janaka Maharaj said, you are safe, he meant it, because he was one of the Raja Rishis. So of course, even though the king had reassured them, they made quick work of the prasadam and got out from under the dangling swords. So after they had all honored prasadam and washed their hands, they asked Janak Maharaj the same question. How is it possible for you to do both? And in return, in response, Janak Maharaj asks them a question. He says, tell me something. While all of you were sitting and honoring prasadam, what were you thinking? What was on your mind? And all the sages say, of course, the sword was on our mind. We were a little bit worried. Even though you reassured us that it's not going to fall on our head, yet we could do nothing but think about that sword. But food, honoring prasadam, we were just doing it automatically. Our mind was not on the prasadam. Our mind was somewhere else. So Janaka Maharaj says, you see, you can still do your duty very faithfully and have your mind always on Lord Vishnu. So Janaka Maharaj told them, it is possible to do both. To always think of Lord Vishnu and still perform your duties and responsibilities with absolute perfection, with absolute enthusiasm. So this is an important instruction for all of us who think mistakenly that to love Krishna, we have to give up everything else. You don't have to give up anything else. No, so this is the confusion that Arjuna had. First of all, you're asking me to renounce action. Then you're inspiring me to do action, to do selfless work. And Krishna tells him that both ultimately lead to liberation. Renouncing work and working in devotion, both of them lead to liberation. But then Krishna says in chapter 5, of the two, between renouncing work and doing work in devotion, Krishna says doing work in devotion is superior to renouncing. It is superior. Working in devotion is superior to giving up all of your responsibilities and going off into the forest. Which means, actually this will come up in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna will again clarify. So, is being grahastha a better thing or being a sannyasi a better thing? Krishna says a grahastha who is worshipping him is a better sannyasi. So you really don't have to take on the orange robes to be a sannyasi. Krishna says if you are a grahastha, you have so many duties and responsibilities on your shoulders. But if you can just think of me and offer yourself in devotion to me, you're better than a sannyasi. You see how Krishna is making it clear to us again and again. We don't have to give up everything. We simply have to add Krishna. We don't need to subtract anything. We just have to add Krishna to the equation. So this is this particular chapter. This chapter is a little short. It just has around 28 shlokas. So this is the summary of Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So I'll stop here and I'll just talk about the one-word summary. So we'll do a quick review. What was the one-word summary? What was the title of chapter 1?
Lament.
Title.
Observing the